So the community challenge, the theme is up, floral humanoids. To download your resource pack, just go to the istebrak.com/community page and download your resource pack right here. And just remember to follow the rules. If you post in the theme submissions category right here. So theme submissions. And just make sure that you're not posting sketch by sketch, and pretty much everything you need to know is already in there. But if your chosen theme didn't win this poll, I will bring back all of the ones that were voted for, and I will bring them back to the next poll. Okay, so if you wanted to do monsters under the bed, if you wanted to do like the familiars or magical pet or magical companion, I'm still going to bring them back as our next themes. Okay, I'm going to try to keep these themes monthly, if not bi-monthly, if that makes sense. All right, so let's begin today. I'm just going to close this. If you guys have any questions, I do host a Q&A at the very end of the stream if you guys have questions. Istebrak, does it count as nudity if you draw a naked flower person? Basically, if you're showing like reproductive organs or something like that, or if you're showing not reproductive organs, if you're showing like a phallus and if you're showing a vagina, that's not acceptable. These rules, these themes do not exit the rules of the community. These themes are within the rules of the community. If you have big old monster titties on your flower person, I will get rid of it. Find a way to hide it. If they're humanoids, they still have a sense of clothing involved. They're not all naked. I'm sure there's a great deal of the elements against them, if you think about it scientifically. So they will probably need to be clothed. Oh my God, Istebrak's voice is so overrated. It sounds like any other voice. Thank you, Nick. No, seriously, it is. But can you show breasts? Yes, you can. You can show breasts. But again, if you're showing like the nipples and they're excessively rendered and all the contrasts headed towards them, then I will not look at it and I will not post it on the YouTube, because children do follow my videos, and we did an age poll recently, and there's a lot of 14-year-olds and underage students in this community. So try not to avoid the nipple. I mean, you don't need the nipple. The nipple's not going to change the character design unless she shoots spider webs out of her nipples. At that point, yes, functionally it needs to be visible. But unless you have that requirement, there no nipples, please. All right, so let's get started. I'm sorry about the technical difficulties earlier. I hope that we don't disconnect. If I do disconnect, I will just start the stream. Just stand by. Okay, so let's take a look at these pieces one by one. Again, they're very varied. This week and last week, they've been just all over the place, the themes for the critiques. There hasn't been one specific theme. One day soon, I will do a day on eyes, and I will assign you guys to draw a bunch of eyes, and we'll talk about eyes. I will actually do a beginning to end lesson on how to do eyes. I'll render an eye in front of you, and then I'll do another one on noses, and I'll do another one on mouths, and on the face. So I'm trying to update the information that I've given you and kind of refresh my knowledge. I know my videos that I started off with in the community are really old, because I've advanced and I've learned more since then, since like 3 or 4 years ago. I'm not the same artist at all. So I'll be doing one of those soon. But for now, the themes are pretty scattered across. It just depends on who uploads what. Alright, so what I'm going to do first thing is flip the canvas. When you don't understand a certain thing or two about 3/4 view, flipping the canvas is just priceless. It's the best way if you don't have someone to critique your work just nearby. Flipping the canvas is like having a second vision, or a second little perspective on your work. Tuck that nose in. So I like her face. It's very how do you say, muscular. It's not muscular. It's a very bulky face. Very bold features. Very strong features. Not delicate at all. Very strong bone structure. Strong jaw. Wide face. Large features. But I do want to remind you that very easily it'll look just slightly more large on all your features, and it would have looked like a male dressed up as a woman instead of it being a woman. So I'm just going to show you real quick what I just did. Do you see that? The nostril is always higher than the septum. The septum is lower than the nostril. Please write that back to me. Again, if I'm doing one of those nose days, how to draw noses, it'll be just all about noses for a week for those 2 sessions, and you guys will upload your work. This is outside of the theme polls. I will just say, okay, draw me some noses because we're going to have a nose session soon. I'll cover this stuff with you again, but just remember, please, that the septum for a functioning human nose, for a recognizable universal nose, the septum is lower than the nostril. It's not the other way around. All right, so before, after. So yeah, she still has those very, very strong features. It's still the same character, but now it doesn't have that awkward, unusual anatomy that looks like a deformation. Because when you have a pig nose and a kind of like a weird little pig nose, you know, like a little pig or like an orc, or I don't know how they draw them, but these weird little noses, the septum and the nostrils are all in the same line when you have a pig nose like that. So we want to avoid that. There's no septum at all. So when you lay the nostrils at the same level as the septum, it'll look like you don't even have a septum. It'll look like from the side your nose does this. All right, what we want to do is draw a nose that does this. And when a nose does that, that's crazy. When a nose does that, then that means that the septum, if we're looking at it from the camera, so let's say the camera on this angle is pointing, it's pointing directly at this image. This septum, because it moves out so far, because the nose has such a massive altitude, and these are the depressions, the valleys, it'll read as the nostrils and then the septum, because this camera is looking at the top of the nose. So it means all of this points downward. And we're seeing a lower septum in general. So if the noses you draw, you know, they're anatomically incorrect, you don't have enough studying behind you for the noses that you're drawing, and then you're telling me it's your style, or if I change the character, if for somewhere in the YouTube comments someone says I changed how the character looked, yeah, I made her look less like a pig-human hybrid, and I made her more human. Now she's full human. So if you're saying that this is your style or this is intentional, this is incorrect. You're trying to hide behind the fact that you haven't studied the anatomy correctly. There's anatomy, and then there's geometric anatomy. You have a great eye for geometric anatomy. I actually don't see a lot of issues. I would throw this into some light. The reason why I would is because the light is coming from this side, and if the light's coming from this side, what's this side? This side has no business being this dark. Because a cube, if the light was coming from the side, the cube would be illuminated. Oops. The cube would be illuminated on this side, right? So this side would get light, this side would get shadow, and then, you know, everything else, all the shadows move that way. So that's what I mean by geometric anatomy. If the light's shining this way, this side is exposed like a solar panel. So that would be my only little critique on how you shaded. But right now your issue isn't with shading. Your issue right now is with geometric anatomy and actual anatomy. The actual identifiable behavior of a nose, what a nose does usually. It has 2 usual nostrils, 1 usual tip, a very usual altitude, and a very low usual septum. Alright, Istebrak, can the septum be about the same level as the nostrils or always clearly lower? Now there are instances in the real world where we have a septum that is low, slightly lower, or completely leveled with the nostrils. When we have noses like this, usually they belong to a certain race or group of people, and I'm telling you, the most usual thing you see, I've said usual so many times, but the one thing you see in that culture is that everyone gets a nose job. It's like the eyelid surgery or the monolid surgery. You see people getting nose jobs for their noses if they become too short, because when a nose loses its girth, I guess, or its altitude, then it takes away from the beauty slightly. But typically what you're supposed to be doing is memorizing a universal nose. And then if you have to, for some reason, you're designing a character from a certain group of people, and that group of people has a very distinct low bridge in their nose, which means low septum or high septum, then look for a reference. You know, always have guides for the particulars. That's when we use references. Use guide for the particularities. Do not use guides for the universalities. I don't even know if that's a word. But for anything universal, you're supposed to. That's what you're supposed to memorize. The beautiful face. When you have a reference, is when you're observing and studying the selective, the particular anatomy that comes in amazing varieties and all kinds of combinations in the real world. Okay. So what guided me is the universal nose that I've memorized around identifying which issues this nose is having. So that's what guided me to choosing to lower or raise the nostril up beneath this septum. And then if you had to find a specific reference and that specific person in your reference had a very high septum, then please upload the reference. But very unlikely, you will find this as commonplace. This is a very serious issue when it comes to noses. Something happened where the tip of the nose or an extra piece of the nose has been removed. So I'm just going to continue talking about how the position of this nostril right here. Again, it's supposed to be higher than the septum. Septum is just a little bit lower. And by septum, I'm not even sure I'm speaking the exact medical term for this area, but what I mean is just this piece right here. The leftover of the bridge in between the nostrils looking down. So I will have a Q&A in a second about this specific thing. Please remember to write my name. If you don't write my name, then that doesn't highlight the question and I can't find it. And I'll most likely ignore it unintentionally. Another major aspect of nose anatomy is the nostril cavity itself. If the nostril that you're drawing doesn't have a cavity, or you're not familiar with radial shading, so you don't know how to radiate the shadows and actually make it look like an actual hole, you'll end up doing this every time. You'll just use this little line excuse. Oh, it's the kind of nostril that has a very tight or small little canal or trench instead of it being an actual hole. That's not good. You need to memorize, again, the universal nose. And the universal nose has a bit of space in the nostril. If you used your nose, please take a picture of your nose. If this is a reflection of how you look in your specific particular anatomy, then take a picture and copy it exactly. I need to zoom out for these sweeping brush strokes. Flip the canvas. Take a picture because it'll help you memorize a more accurate image. Not even just having a mirror nearby. A mirror is not going to help. Take an actual picture of a still frame in the motion of your nose and then work with it from there. Okay, you guys can ask your questions now about this. I'm going to try to do questions every 10 or so minutes. That way we don't have a ton at the end. What I'm doing right now is I'm just getting a secondary light source on the nostril reflected from this surface. And I'm just going to illuminate this. Beautiful job on the dark light pattern on the nostrils. I mean on the Cupid's bow. Really good job. Another issue that I'm seeing here is the placement of the lip is asymmetrical. Again, one of these is higher than the other, and we see more of this overlap. So the lip actually looks like it's in 3/4 view. Part of the lip is in front of the distant part, just like how we compress the eye widthwise. We compress and hide the distant corner of the lip. Istebrak, isn't the left eye too far out? Yes, there are issues with this eye. I'll get to them in a second. Rotation issues. How would you do radial shading in the nostrils again? Okay. So let's say this is the shape of the nostrils. It's a very teary drop shape, bean shape. Usually that's the universal symbol for it. We have the base tone, and then we get the shadow color. The shadow color is just going to be a combination of like pinks and purples. Okay, and what we do is we increase the size of our brush, lower opacity, test the first one, it still needs to be cooler and darker, test the first brush stroke, just gonna get a good setup here, and then first brush stroke is a large brush stroke, and then second and third and fourth, and we just keep getting darker the closer and deeper we get into the nostril. Alright, so that's radial shading when we actually make it look like a cave. And then we leave the darkest dark spot, depending on the darkness of the eyes, because if we put too much darkness in the nostril, it's going to take attention away from the eyes. And then we leave that there. That's what I mean by radial shading. Radial shading is like a sand pile technique. I have so many videos now that talk about radial shading. So if you're not sure what radial shading is or how to execute it, just look for those videos in my video history. I usually have very large font. describing the content of each video in the thumbnail. In front view, can there be a nose such as that the ball tip of it covered the connection of the septum to the rest of the face, which would create the illusion of the nostrils being higher? In front view, can there be a nose such as the ball tip or the connection of the septum with the rest of the face? Yes, yes. When the nose is downturned. So let's open up Portrait Studio because we have the ability to lower the septum and raise it. So let's open up Portrait Studio real quick. No, NVIDIA, not right now. So I really don't know what to do about Google Plus. Like, I really want to make an appeal. Maybe they can let us use Classic. Most likely they're not going to give a shit about what we think. But just please remember that it's so important for us to follow the rules. Make sure that you're looking for the rules. Oops. The sky is going to be this one right here. Okay, the ambient goes up. And let's rotate him real quick for a sec. Actually, I'm just going to keep this open. And I'm just going to rotate him. You press E to rotate x-axis and R to rotate y-axis, and both to rotate everywhere. And then spacebar to reset. So I'm rotating him to the side. I'm going to go into the options or the model. Go into the nose blend shapes. And then Nostrils Downturned. Alright, so I'm turning the nose downward completely. This is really going to create the illusion that the septum is much lower than the nostrils. So the tip of the nose is so low it no longer shows the nostril cavities, but when we raise it back up, or if we do a little bit of an upturn nose, let me rotate him from the side so you guys can see what's happening. Take a look at what's happening here in the preview. Alright, so zoom. Alright, so this is the upturn. Oops, wrong one. This is the upturn. This is what I'm saying. Your septum, when it's higher, this is what happens on the side. This is like you've changed. It's no longer human. It's become like an ogre or some other humanoid. Alright, when it's leveled, this is still upturned, by the way. This is higher than usual. And this is just about where it usually is. So we have like a teardrop shape. His nose specifically has got a very strong nose shape. So just remember that. Just because you think, oh, you say this is my style, or the septum is higher in my style, your style is a non-human, has parts of his nose missing. If that's something you're aware of, then all the power to you. You've intentionally chosen this, but when you accidentally make mistakes like this, and then you think it's still human, it's not. Right, that's why it's really important to just take a look at some referencing. Make sure that you have that. So again, before, after. And I'm just going to leave this as the after, but take a look at the lips as well. See how far out the lips are? It's like they orbited outside of their rotation. That's also problematic. So flipping your canvas, remembering geometric anatomy, remembering universal anatomy, all of these work together to make your character more believable. So yes, the new nose did change her, but I don't think it changed her for the worse. Do you? I don't think it changed her for the worse. I don't think it changed this character completely. She still has a very wide Cupid's bow that's very, very beautiful and elegant, very French kind of face. I don't know how to describe it, but you have that wide Cupid's bow for specifically French faces. I don't know what it is. You guys hogged all the beauty. But before, after. Now for the eye has also orbited outside of its rotation. Typically the distant eye is supposed to be significantly less wide. And I'm trying to align it with the verticals right here. Get that brow out. I'll take off. I'll keep carving at it with my paintbrush. The hairline is very, very low, especially because you hid the hairline under that silvery mane. You kind of threw off exactly what anatomy you were going for. Be careful though, because when I did give it more forehead as it needs, she looked old. So try to bring in more density around the hairline, at least some kind of shading to show that she's not balding. Because yes, you will accidentally start borrowing from age signatures for older people if you're using a washed out face that has super, super pale pinks and has gray hair. You will accidentally draw an old person, even if you didn't mean to. It's just because you're using those signatures. Okay, so it's okay. I don't think it'll interrupt again. If it does, again, I'll be right back. But I'm using the backup server now, so I think it'll stay connected, hopefully. So what I'm doing is I'm tucking this eye in. What am I tucking it along? This horizontal line that balances all the symmetry. There's vertical and horizontal lines, right? That's what I'm using. This eye has usually eyes that are pretty have a higher outer corner, but this eye has a lower inner corner, a lower outer corner. So there's a downturned and then there's the upturned. So let me zoom in real quick. Whoa! I'm going to change the fucking speed. Alright. So where are you? Where are the eyes? Cheeks, eyes, and then the rotation. So your eyes look a little bit like that. Some eyes do come like that. The universal beauty standard has eyes that look like this, or the norm, or the default that the model came in. And then when you do this, you're using completely new anatomy. This is not normal. We kind of have a silhouette of this exact kind of eye shape when it comes to Asian eyes, but they're actually just like this. They're just hooded. So they're just hooded like that. That creates the illusion that one corner is actually higher than the other, just because of the hooded eye. And then we have the lower eye as well. Okay, so right now your eyes are actually very masculine. You've chosen a very specifically masculine eye tilt. So the other eye has to have that. The other eye didn't have a symmetrical inner corner and outer corner. When you're trying to make the eyes more symmetrical, make the inner corners. Start with the inner corners. Write that back to me. I swear to God, Marco, if you start making fun of me. So yeah, I have a little bone to pick with some of you. We've been leaguing, not every night, but every time we can, and we've been leaguing against the viewers of the stream, my friends and I. You fuckers come in with these lies. Oh, I'm not flat. I'm not flat. And you guys get these, like, flats to play for you. You guys pretend that you don't spend 15 hours a day on League, and then you league against us and you just cream us. What's all that about? If you guys keep doing that, we're not going to host those streams anymore where we play against the viewers. You guys ruined it for everyone. Stop pretending that you don't league every day, okay? You just totaled us. You destroyed us. We were so sad. Right, before, after. We were so bummed out. We were so defeated. We felt so defeated. Like, we play random queue all the time, and I mean, we've never seen that kind of performance, that kind of skill level with the people we face on the normal queue. And and then we play against you guys, and you guys are just like, you guys have it out for me, don't you? Like, you want to get back at me for every time I've critiqued your work or something. You just want to destroy me and my team. You have no involvement in this. Alright, so what I'm doing now is just keep working on this brow bone, trying to make sure that it matches. So she's got a very hooded eye. She actually has a very strong hood to her eye. And then finally, this eye is completely out of its orbit as well. I'm just going to connect that back over here. Stupid snap. So before, after. And if you wanted that distant eye, that close-up eye, the one that's closest to us, to be a little closer, or have like a more wide separation between, like both eyes, like have a great distance between both eyes, they have a little bit of that unusual face. You can keep it out there, but I would just move it just for the sake of, again, making sure that these are not accidental style choices, that if you do make style choices, they're intentional. But has the internet been good? Yeah, back to topic. Alright, so before, you drew a front view, 3/4 view eye. Do you see that? After. Alright, so ask your questions now. Go ahead and ask your questions. I'm just going to do some final touches. The side of the nose needs some brightness as well. The side of the nose is a very, very shiny thing. You have a lot of like potential. You have a lot of it. You're using like, look at that shadow you put for the bridge. You're definitely going somewhere with this. And I just want to remind you that practicing your anatomy, memorizing your geometric anatomy, looking at universal anatomy, memorizing the universal face, universal beauty, none of that is going to destroy your image. It is going to change your image, but it's going to change it for the better. It's not something that you can't unsee good anatomy once you see it. You can't undo it. You can't unlearn skill. And I feel like most of these choices that you guys make are not intentional. They're accidental. The light is coming from the side, so that means that we have shadows on this side. Oops. Just going to merge that down. Istebrak, isn't the nose too turned compared to the rest of the face? Well, I'm just looking for the symmetry line. So the symmetry line is telling me that we're seeing some of the distant nostril. Again, so let's take it into this. Default. So let's rotate her face. Or let's get the male because he has a more defined nostril shape. Let me start with his nose. Make his nose a little more upturned. Downturned. Right, so a little bit more level. And then just rotate his head. We don't really see the distant nostril, do we? So it's just a matter of having, let me fix the lighting real quick. It's just a matter of having this awareness of what's being hidden once we rotate. The nose is very high. Look at it. It's already covering the face. And we're in an extreme 3/4 view. We aren't even in side view. And it's already covered the face. It's breached the edge of the face contour, that contour line. Okay? So I feel like the nose is perfect where it is. We are seeing the side of the eye. The distant corner is hidden behind the lips. There's a small visibility of the inner corner. So I think everything is in place pretty much. I don't have a problem with the width of the mouth. That's how her face is, I guess. It kind of looks like she has an expression. Maybe I would raise it because I'm trying to balance it with the other mouth. Not so much to make her smile, but just to give her that neutral position. And you are symbolic. This is definitely all of the symptoms of the leftovers of line dependency, because you have a line here for the edge of the lip that you did not need. Alright, so before, after. If you want this piece sent back to you, I can send it back on Facebook. Just message me there. Alright, so let's move on to this. I wanted to talk about this real quick and talk about blocking. Istebrak, what's the best way to memorize anatomy? Should I just get an anatomy book? Anatomy books are good if they introduce geometric anatomy, and the anatomy book that I always recommend is Bern Hogarth. He's very old. I can understand if he's outdated, but he's probably one of the only guys I've seen that really embeds, that just saturates his lessons with the cube. And he represents it as a geometric anatomy, the muscle groups of the face, rather than singular group muscles, medical memorization of every single muscle group. That's absolutely useless. Please remember that don't memorize this muscle group with that unless you're a kinesiologist, unless you're lifting now and you're trying to focus different muscle groups to lift with and be selective lifting, or you're a med student and you have to memorize the body. All right? You memorize how it looks as a whole, so as a piece. So this is what I'm going to talk about now. This piece is separate from this piece, which is separate from this piece. When we use muscles, when we represent groups of muscles after we draw the gesture lines, so as you know, gesture lines first, then shapes. When we bring in the shapes from male bodies, use more than female bodies, because male bodies have more defined, separate, distinct muscle groups that separate from the other ones. But again, don't memorize muscle groups, memorize the image of it. Use a cylinder for the upper arm, use a cube for the lower arm, use kind of like a pyramid cylinder type deal for the pectorals. Think of it that way, because if you replace it with images and more diagrams and more symbols, you're just going to do yourself a disservice. So what I'm doing right now is I'm trying to show that this muscle group is separate from this muscle group, and I'm using a very defined brush right now that has a very defined edge, and I'm blocking. So this is what you should have been seeing. I'm using extra contrast than I should be. So first let me get rid of the contrast, and then just so I can show you the value of that edge. Darken. Alright, so just these fixes, fixing the contrast and identifying the edges, and the arm is already looking significantly better. And you had all this texture, and you were just going in with your texture, but you didn't capture the edges or the highlights. So what was that texturally, painterly brush doing for you? It was doing nothing. It wasn't fixing where it wasn't providing you with knowledge, was it? It wasn't making up for what you don't know. Textured brushes don't make up for what you don't know. Write that back to me. Alright. So what I'm doing is I'm blocking the side of this, the front of this, the side of this, the front of this, the gradient, and then the more cubes. I'm just looking for cubes wherever I can see them, and looking for edges. So right here there's an edge. So I'm just going to give a nice big old block for that edge right here. Zooming out really helps you see these. Look at the navigator. The navigator is telling us, giving us all kinds of information. Lots and lots of edges. So to celebrate our 50K, I know I haven't mentioned it, but I'm trying not to like gush all over. I'm just trying to stay sane. I still can't believe we hit 50K. It's so fast too, and basically what I'm predicting, what we've predicted, is that we're getting so many subscribers a day that within like 3 months time we're gonna hit 100K. That's like unprecedented for my channel. I've never seen that before in my life. I don't know what happened. Maybe YouTube just picked up on my channel or something, but it's yeah, we're gonna hit 100K before the end of the year, before the half of the year. And yeah, I'm gonna what I did choose to celebrate our 50K is a Draw My Life. So I'm gonna do a Draw My Life for you guys. I don't know what's so interesting about my life. I really don't even want to talk about my life. It's been pretty much uninteresting until now. But I can definitely do that if you guys wanted that. A lot of you just commented, and there's tons and tons of comments, usually high amount of comments that wanted the Draw My Life. So I'm going to try to get it done before the end of the week. But yeah, I cannot believe we're at 50K. It's unbelievable. So I'm going to go in here and then just do some more blending. But remember, the blending didn't just happen. It after the blocking in, we blend after blocking in. I don't know if I'm that good. I really don't know, Narayan. I don't know. I'm not uncomfortable with a Draw My Life, but I'm not comfortable with Draw My Life. I'm just in between. I'm bored of my life. I'm just thinking that it's boring. Why would you guys why would you guys care? But a lot of you are growing artists, and you kind of see me as some sort of authority for this class. I don't understand why. I'm just the host, but I feel like you guys might benefit from learning about how I studied and what mistakes I made in my progression. And you see this business right here? What is this? What is this textured brush doing other than interrupting a beautiful, sexy ass edge that you need in place? What was that texture brush doing? No. Get that weird fantasy about painterly stuff that you admire from the artists that are better than you. Get that out of your head. These guys, they didn't get to use this textured brush until they perfected their geometric anatomy. You need this edge. You, Mr. Student, need this edge. You are in need of it. You are desperately starving. You need an IV filled with edge, and you need an injection to get you back. You are desperately in need of some edge work. Always, student, not you specifically in regards to this painting. In general, you guys always need edge work. Always put edge work ahead of everything. This background sharp against this edge gives it more detail, gives it more completion. If you if you muddy this edge, look at what just happened. We lost the form. We need that edge. That's a real edge that exists in the real world. All right? Artists that are better than us, these crazy masters, these masters of masters, they get to mess around and fuck around with their brushes and muddy up edges. They know what to do, though. They know how to keep it sharp in which areas, and in which areas to really muddy it up. They know how to blur along anatomy instead of blurring against anatomy. If you're painting texturally, texturize with the anatomy. Don't texturize against the anatomy. Write that back to me. So I'm blending only part of the edge right here. And again, the contrast is off, so I'm just going to use a darken brush mode and just set that up. Alright, so now that everything's in place, I can bring in the contrast. I can exaggerate the contrast in the reference. Building up radially. Again, radially, very, very important. These are fatty pieces, meaning that when we build them up radially, we are creating a cylinder. So the cylinder needs to be to have volume brought into it. Right, look at that. Okay, I know this guy is a hottie and he's got his hands, you know, he's got his muscles and he's got his smile, but I swear to God, I'm telling you, these edges, just if I'm looking at a guy, I'm not looking at him per se, I'm looking at the edge work. Okay? That's the turn on. That's what you have to remember. That has to be your muse. That has to be all about the geometric anatomy and the edge work. That's what gets your you know, your blood boiling and makes you want to get on a canvas and just start drawing some edges. That's what it's all about. Forget the hot guy. Look at these edges, you know. Okay, so you saw exactly what I did before. Textures, just textures, you know, texture. And here, look at my texture. And look at some more of my texture. And then you just forgot. You forgot these really important native geometries to identify, to observe in your image. I mean, you got some of them here on the chest. You have a crazy nice little radial shading. See that radial shading over here? You have some of it again consistent, but it's not a consistent behavior from you, is it? I don't see any severe awareness of the edge work, and this is something you have to work on. So the first thing we did was we blocked, right? We blocked, and then we fixed the contrast so we can use it later. If you minimize your use of contrast now, you have more contrast to climb later. So use your contrast efficiently. Write that back to me. You can write it in the comments on YouTube as well, if any YouTubers following. All right. So right now I'm blending, I'm thinking about edge work. This is about the time I started talking about the 50K. Fix that edge. Look at that sexy ass edge. Look at how it looked before. There's no reason for it to be that muddied up. It's a real edge. He's not blended in with the background. He doesn't have fur floating around him. He doesn't have weird satellites orbiting his arm. So why are there little artifacts out there? You're here to study and memorize geometric anatomy and instances of radial shading on this specific anatomy, on this specific group of muscles. Alright, so that's how we got here. It's really important for you guys to remember this stuff. It's not a joke, it's not a style, it's not my way. It's real sciences that were here before I was born. Okay. So before, after. There's very minimal contrast. I don't use darks. I try not to use them when I'm studying. That way I avoid memorizing like a really dark version or a high contrast version in my visual library that might mess up my colors later. So just find the perfect balance between blended and geometric edges. Okay, so I wanted to talk about another thing. Okay, so E. When we have the light, so the light right now is pretty friendly. When we have the light above her head, pointing downward, I'm sorry about these shadows. We're still working on these weird little shadow acne thingies, these messed up edges. It's just Unity. Unity is very, very limiting, and we use a game engine to run Portrait Studio. So this is why they don't really have high quality lights available, because usually when you're running around in a game, you don't have like these crazy lights for every stupid little object or artifact in the level. So they don't realize that, you know, one day maybe someone's going to have a zoom up or something. They don't really care about that. Usually no one's computers can perform high quality light anyway, so that's why they keep it so low. They have an open source open right now to fix it on Unity, but it's very unlikely they're going to fix it anytime soon. But we're updating everything else. We buy all kinds of plugins to make sure Unity is high performance for you guys. This is just one of the last issues that my programmer and I are facing, and it's nothing to do with the model. The models are just perfect. Our modeler did an amazing job. It's everything to do with Unity and the limits that it provides. Like the service it provides is limited. And then Just make sure that this descends downward, that it's radial. So let's look at a sphere. When we're looking at a sphere, the way we shade that sphere, so shift to get a perfect sphere, by the way, on the marquee tool. I'm better than this, I'm better than this. And Control H to hide the marching ants. And then we shade radially. Look at this. In a couple seconds, you guys will see a beautiful, beautiful sphere. Okay. Look at that. Damn. Damn, look at that form. You know in a magazine when you get those fold-out pieces? For me, for the magazines I look at, for those dirty magazines, my dirty magazines are full of form. Damn, look at that. Shit. Alright, so what we're seeing here is a gradual descent. This is the beard shadow. This is the lowest geometry equivalent. I'm not even looking at the chat. This is the lowest geometry equivalent of this face. So when you had like all of these extra shadows, you had this humongous piece of light here. This again is a remnant of your radial shading. You're not thinking about geometric anatomy. Where I am going to erase though, because it's not a sphere, is on the chin. I'm just going to erase along the chin. Oh, whoops. Because the chin is an interruption of that beard, of course. Look at the face from the side. Rotate the face from the side. Okay. Are you guys done? Can I look at the questions? Can I do a Q&A now? If this chin disappeared, since the light on the chin would disappear as well, right? Let's take a look at that. Right, when we get rid of it, completely disappears. And we just have that underbite or overbite. Okay? And then the jaw. Maybe we can, oh no, the jaw is there. Does the chin have a, there we go. Completely got rid of it. Sorry, then you would have the remnant of that sphere, but the human anatomy, accurate human anatomy, functional human anatomy, when you can chew, you actually need a lower jaw. When people don't have a jaw, they get surgeries to get a jaw because you need it to breathe and eat and function normally. So it isn't just a matter of deformation or not being perfect, it's a matter of function, and function is beauty. That's a little mini lesson on the side for you. Okay? So just tiny little corrections, and they've kind of deflattened the face. They've let the face exist in an open space. Yeah, I can look? Okay, function is beauty. Alright. So before, after. So now the head is more realistic. Your values aren't random gradients along the edge or decided by the edge. You actually have a believable skin tone. It doesn't have these random patches at the top, unless she had weird little balding head pattern, male pattern balding happening. And then all of that along with, I don't think I'm on Discord, am I? A lot of that is happening on the face as well. So I'm going to try to get rid of, yeah, okay, thank you. So I'm going to try to get rid of some of these shadows. And this is, again, another instance of your line dependency. I've covered this so many times. This nose shadow, this evil nose shadow, get rid of it. This nose shadow, even on the nostrils. And then carry this highlighter all the way up to represent the bridge of the nose. You don't need shadows on either side of the nose. Write that back to me. Oops. So yeah, I'll tell you the story. I'll tell you the story. It was a very embarrassing story. I'm not sure if my student noticed that I said it, but as I was teaching, I wanted to say the word art, and I wanted to say the word shadow. And they just both came out at the same time. I couldn't control it. They just both came out at the same time, and I ended up saying shart. And it was so embarrassing because it was like I was trying to correct myself, but I was shocked by the fact that I said it, so I just stood there. I just stopped painting. I stopped the paint over. The student is quiet. I'm quiet. And I just let that word have a stage. I gave that word time. And it was so embarrassing. And I think my student noticed. They were so polite, so sweet. They didn't say anything about it. And I'm just there with my intellectual so-called authority, just teaching, and I just end up saying the word shart. And they have recordings. And my students record the lessons that I give them. So they ended up recording that, and I don't know if they went over it to make sure I said it. I don't know, but it was the most embarrassing moment I've ever had, ever. And I didn't know what to do with it. And these things just happen to you. You don't control them. I lowered the septum, and I'm going to raise the contrast over here. Yeah. Yeah, but it was very, very embarrassing, and I don't know how to recover from things like that. I really don't. I'm gonna use the darken brush mode and just darken the lower pieces of the nose. Right here, you had a highlight just out of nowhere. Before, after. Now, these are the things the 14-day challenge is for. Removing the symbols of portraits and replacing the human face, replacing the symbolic way you see a human face and replacing it. How do I say this? Start seeing the face instead of a symbol, see it as a building. That's what the 14-day challenge is for. See it as a structure, an architectural structure. She's not so much cross-eyed as she is looking at something in the direct foreground, like something right in front of her, like she's eyeing someone down, or she's like looking at something, like you know how in UFC when they do the weigh-ins and they just eye each other down. It looks like someone's in front of her that close. But if you wanted to fix it, if you wanted to make her eyes seem a little bit less crossed, or looking at directly at you instead of the butterfly flying in front of her face, then you can just do this instead. All right. But I didn't have too much of an issue. It looked like an accurate way to draw something looking ahead of you. Alright. Kind of looks like that one Indian actress. Oops. Before. After. I'm going to radially descend the nose. The nose needs its own little core shadow. But when you do public speaking, you're your worst enemy because you can't control what you do. Sometimes you just start laughing at shit and you can't, like, there's no way to stop. It's done. It's done. Your brain says, you know what? I haven't fucked with you today. Here, let me give you the most hilarious thing you've ever seen in a while. I'm just going to remind you of it for no reason at all. The neck seemed a little bit dark, way outside her skin tone value. It was very unusual, like she had just very, very dark skin, but only in the neck. And the chin actually has its own value now. And then finally, the lips. Please stop outlining lips. Lips don't have an edge. They connect to the skin on screen. They're not a form edge and they're not a pigmented edge, unless she's wearing lipstick and lip liner and has white foundation to make the lips even more outlined. But 14-day challenge, typically you're not supposed to be putting on great crazy amounts of makeup or scars or any accessories on what you're drawing. So yeah, I repeat myself. Yeah, these are basics that we see all the time. But when we see how they're broken, yeah, at that point, the basics have a whole new precedence. Basics don't necessarily mean simple. What am I saying? Basics don't mean simplicity. It's hard to fight basics and allow them to be present in your work. It's very difficult to fight them because you think they're so simple. You think you have everything in place, and then you realize, wow, the basics come with a pack a heavier punch for me to. A massive amount of time is required before you really master them and have them present in your work. And the basics are the difference between you and the master. Alright. So I'm just doing some more edge work. I feel like that lip on, like that little piece here on either side of the lip is a little bit too bright, throwing off the highlight. So I'm just gonna mute it for a little. Okay, so now it's a three-dimensional object. It's using the signatures that we've memorized from our reference, and it's doing exactly what a form would do in an open space. Istebrak, I had an art teacher tell me that when drawing with a reference picture, draw it upside down. Drawing it upside down keeps me from drawing what I think I'm seeing instead of what I'm actually seeing. Thoughts? Absolutely, Sarah. This is a beautiful technique. This is wonderful. It interrupts your vantage point. It interrupts your ability to see the symbol and translate it as a symbol. There's amount of time. There's a micro amount of time, this little second, from when your eyes leave the reference and leave the picture you're painting. So there's like a singular moment. It's just a split second, but it changes everything right here. Alright, so you've got your picture, you got your reference, and then you've got the person sitting down. All right. The hell. So you've got your version. So there's a time when your eyes are doing this. Your eyes are in this space right here. When you transfer from here to here, your tricky little brain, your evil little brain that throws Mario pictures where you're trying to teach, this little brain starts to say, okay, shit, I forgot. All right, you know what? I didn't forget. Actually, go ahead and just use this symbol right here. I didn't forget what I just saw. I do remember it for you. So here you go, Istebrak. Here's your image. This is what you actually saw. I'm going to end up using some really weird pictures and really weird symbols, and I'm going to try to throw in whatever I think I saw. This is exactly what you're supposed to be doing, is interrupting your vantage point, flipping the canvas, flip it upside down, flip it inside out, whatever you have to do to interrupt this little transfer right here, because this tiny little transfer, this split second that you took, like that you transfer the information from your brain through your hand and onto your paper, that changed how you retain the information, and what you end up spewing out onto the painting, onto the canvas, isn't actually what you saw, because you're seeing it in the angle that you memorize the symbol. You start seeing the symbol of the face instead of the actual blocks and the anatomy that you're seeing. So when you interrupt it and you start seeing an upside down face, you will start seeing a building sooner than you see the symbol, because it's not aligned with your symbol. You're going to have to rotate it to see the symbol. So flipping the canvas is exactly the same as flipping your reference upside down, or flipping your painting upside down. Don't paint it upside down, of course. You don't want to do that. That's going to really throw off the way you memorize in your visual library. So don't paint it upside down. Don't just paint upside down. And just assess it, review it, look for mistakes through different angles. So just doing that showed me I need a little bit more highlight on the nose. Just right there. Okay. So it's that tiny microscopic amount of time that you look away from the reference and your painting that your brain does tricky shit. It starts messing around with the way you remember something. So this piece has a photograph reference. That's a very washed out reference, but there's still grays. So why am I seeing pure white on the face? This is something I really wanted to look over real quick. There's also identifiable cast shadows with real outlines in them that all have the same temperature. So this value is this value is this value is this value, because the light source has been the same source the whole time. It unifies the behavior of shadows. So you have too many whites on your face, throwing off your ability to climb properly into your grayscales, and your values are, for your cast shadows, are all varied. They represent a different light source each time. Beautiful reference though. Beautiful reference. And then this is another example of that. I'm not sure if it's the same person who painted this face. I'm not even sure if they're the same people. It looks like the same exact mistake. Is it the same? Let's look at their handwriting. I think it's the same person, right? This is a different day of your 14-day challenge. I don't know. It might be, might not be. Did the exact same things with the nose. But yeah, same issue. It might be the same person. Same issue. You have no shadow up here, and you need all the shadow down here. So I'm going to start taking questions now. Make sure you write my name so I can see the question. She says this all the time. What's happening? I use lines all the time when I sketch. You guys see me the way I sketch. I use lines. I've used lines. But when I'm trying to render something, I don't keep the line there. The line doesn't do any more work than the edge does. The edge does way more work than the line. So when I say stop using lines, I mean stop transferring your lines and pretending that they can do the same job that edges can. Because once you get rid of the edge, you get rid of the form, and you invest your time into the symbol. Okay. So let's see, any questions? There they are. Istebrak, how do you make sure the values you are using for skin color for the 14-day challenge all belong to the same person? Like, how do you make sure you don't use something too light or too dark? You start with the mid-tone. So let's take a look at this piece, because this one's been critiqued. You start at the mid-tone, if your highlighter is up here, and this is your mid-tone, and your shadow is down here, something went wrong. These are two massive jump. They're massive. They're massive. That means that suddenly something happened where the highlights are this high and the shadows are this dark and there's no space for midtones. The best way to keep it the same skin tone all around is to have more midtone than highlight and shadow. Midtone means that we have this midtone here. We have this slight midtone raise in the value. We have this slight lower than usual midtone shadow, but it's definitely not here, and it's definitely not this. And when we want to bring in a highlight, we bring this or this on the smallest amount of space. We use them only where they're really needed, like a dark spot, or open mouth, or the pupil, or eyebrows, or anything that is pigmented. But as for skin proper, so remove the nostrils, you're just looking at skin alone. This is the midtone for the skin, this is the highlight for the skin, and this is the shadow for the skin. And don't confuse shadow with dark spot. Don't confuse highlight with specularity. So there's actually lots of shades that you use, not three. You have the specularity, the supreme light source, that the presence of hydration and oil on the face. Then you've got slight highlight, slightly above the midtone. You've got slight shadow for any bumps or contours. And then you've got dark spot, which means a pure black cave that happens in the face that is outside the pigment, that is outside the midtone. Alright, I hope that answers your question. I've been drawing for 8 years and I feel all my life I've fucked myself for not studying fundamentals. But I can seem to find a way to study efficiently. But I can't seem to find a way to study efficiently with a system and where to start. Advice? For a while I studied without technique. For a long while. For all my life. And when I started teaching, or actually just 2 years before I started teaching, I started trying to think about my form and started looking at some art books. I started really just diving my face right into Bern Hogarth's books and looking at processes for still lifes on YouTube. I just started really just looking at art happen instead of trying to make it, and looking at masters happen instead of trying to just paint my own stuff and try to be a master myself. I stopped completely. I was like, I give up. I'm not making any more masterpieces. What I noticed, the thread that connected all of these masters together, is that the basics were so important in their lives, were so important in their process, that their technique was no longer susceptible to mistake making. So then as a teacher, I tried to deconstruct this. I tried to also introduce this for my students. I tried to tell them, hey, okay, listen, forget the masterpiece, forget the symbol, replace it with a building, replace it with a form, a cube. And when I started changing, when I started remembering the fundamentals, when I really changed, that's when I started doing form studies. So if you don't know where to start, and you're very, very scared, Mito, and you have no idea how to even approach all of this, I know it's basics, but it's not simple, and it's a lot of them too. It's a lot of fundamentals. What you have to do is start doing some form studies. Form studies are they're going to help you see your references better. They're a fix-all kind of technique. Yes, they are. They're one of those small moments, tiny little times in the world where we actually have a fix-all, a do-all kind of thing. And form studies, you can trust it to do that. You can trust it to help you shape geometry better, to see it better in your references, and to preserve it when you transfer, when your eye does that sneaky little shift between your reference and your canvas. It won't forget the geometry you just saw and replace it with a symbol. Your brain won't be able to trick you because you can't unsee the fundamentals. You can't unsee the cube. When I say fundamentals, I just mean cube. It's always going to just mean cube. Istebrak, how do I get more critiques on the community? I got a few, but I need more. By giving critiques. Be more active. The more active you are, to create a relationship with 2 or 3 artists in the community, you'll get more activity when they see you post your work up. So create partnerships, you guys. This is a social community. This is part of the ways that I talk about in Why You're Drawing Suck video. I talk about community. So I'm not just saying you're drawing suck, go find a community. I provided you guys with one. So be social. Talk to each other. You want more critiques? Provide critiques. Even if you think they're better than you, there's always something that you're seeing. A non-artist can still give an artist some critiques because we see the real world every day. Istebrak, wow, style crutch. I am guilty for real. How does one effectively break the rules of anatomy to create a feeling without crossing into the uncanny valley. When it comes to long bodies or short bodies or drawing, there's versions of that style in the real world. So you have tall people and short people. Typically what you end up seeing is the head is usually 8 to 7, 7.5 in the length of the body, and 2 on their side for the width of the body. So that's one way to create crazy proportions while still keeping the painting, the proportions believable. You can also stretch what's already been stretched originally. You can exaggerate what's already weird in the real world. So a nose can be made to be larger than usual or smaller than usual, just as long as it's still functional. So it's a very specific science, designing your own style, but it mostly has to do with function. As long as it looks like this creature, this Ghibli style, this caricature can still function, then it looks believable. If you draw weird little buttholes instead of nostrils, and you draw non-existent eye sockets, and you forget all the basic rules, you're not going to have a believable style. It's just going to look like you don't know how to shade and you forgot how to study radial shading for a nostril. When it comes to style, you have to learn the rules before you break them. My position on that will never change. Spend time perfecting your anatomy. You'll naturally start to break some rules, and you'll be able to break them with an eye for the mistake. And you'll be able to know when you're doing the uncanny valley and know what to not do to not reach the uncanny valley. It's very specific and situational. I won't be able to tell you unless I'm given a specific style to look at, but that's the general rule. You should name the Draw My Life you should name the Draw My Life DML, so that way OPNY artists from your channel watch it instead of randos, you know? Unless you want to reach the audience. I don't know what you're talking about. You mean like, I don't know what you're saying, Nick. Pretty much every aspect of any kind of art is to know what rules you're breaking and why you're breaking them. I'm doing the 14-day challenge again, and I'm struggling. It takes me 6 hours to do a face, and it looks flat and dull. How do I get a more solid face like 3D clay? Could I be using my brushes wrong? No. No. The entire lesson today is us telling you that your brushes aren't making the mistake. You are. Your brushes have nothing to do with what you're doing. Your brushes are just it's just a dumb little animal. It's not going to do anything. Your brush is non-existent. It has no consciousness. Your brush doesn't change your choices. Your brush only can distract you or benefit you. It's either a good tool or a bad tool. It's either an efficient tool or an efficient tool or an inefficient tool. Why your drawings don't look like clay? Why you were not getting that 3D look is because you don't have enough form studies behind you. I mean, we looked at one major core shadow today. This core shadow here makes all the difference. Did you guys see that sphere that I painted in like a second or two? The core shadow did that. The radial shading did that. You learn that by drawing blobs. So what I recommend, this is something I do for all my private students, I assign them blob sheets, blob form studies. So we get the sheet and I say, draw me some blobs. And they pick up the lasso tool, draw a random blob number 2, blob number 3, blob number 4, and they just get, so this is the light environment. I choose something slightly darker than the light environment. Keep my transparency locked, use my soft brush, and you just start shading. The thing that I avoid right now, bringing highlight into, is the core shadow. So that's why your work isn't looking like clay. So the light's coming from the top. It's because you're not thinking of anything as a form study. Even blobs, even all these gradients have form. Even this tiny little ass blob has a z-axis. So doing these form studies does worlds for your work. When you go back to a face, you no longer see a symbol, you no longer see that flat gradients. Do you use a lot of gradients, Rosalinda? Like, do you find yourself doing gradients from edge to edge instead of building radially? I really would have to look at your work. But all these mistakes are universal. None of them are just tiny little instances or weird. I've never met a student who I couldn't fix. I know that sounds really cocky, like a doctor saying, I've never met someone who I couldn't cure. But this isn't like a physical ailment, like it isn't some sort of, all these issues come from the same limited 2D paper you used when you were training originally. One day you used a line, instead of an edge to represent a picture, and your brain clicked. It was like, yeah, look, my God, look at this read I got. This is great. And forever after that, you were dependent on lines. You thought lines could do it for you. But did you ever actually do a geometric form study, an organic form study? That's what's going to get you that clay look. Right, so what I'm doing right now is just a blob. This is what I assign my students. You find all kinds of mistakes. Like for me, I diagnose my students. What I do is I assign them this out of the blue. So them draw me some blobs. Their art may look good. Their front view paintings may look amazing. But then I assign them some blobs. It's like they never knew how to draw. Something happened. They've never done this before. They've never done a blob before. So it means they've never sculpted before. It means they have never thought of anything as a form. They've always seen symbols, and they just tricked me into thinking they could sculpt. So when I assign them this blob, this form study, then I can see, oh yeah, you really do have, an inability to rotate. Let's focus on that for now. Be your own teacher. Diagnose yourself. If you find yourself having the most excruciating time painting these forms, it's because you're doing exactly what you should be doing. This is what you've been missing in your work. So they see how I made it look three-dimensional. I know I make it look easier than it really is, and it really is harder than it looks, but you eventually grow an instinct for where to place them, which cast shadows to keep and which ones to get rid of. And then preserving your contrast so you can use it where it counts. Okay? Looks like a weird-ass spaceship thing. So draw some blobs. Do that. Test yourself. Test your ability to sculpt. Can you even sculpt? Why are you asking that your work doesn't look sculpty enough? How could you possibly ask that question after not even trying to sculpt for a while, or trying to do some form studies just like this, these blob studies? Only if you've been doing them for 10 years and you're still not improving, then you can ask that question. Why doesn't my portrait look three-dimensional? Take some time to really do the hard work. Yes. All right. That 14-day challenge is a chance, again, to turn the face from being a face into a building. Thank you. These lessons are really helpful. And when I saw your drawing suck video, I thought you were kind of rude, but you're just giving accurate critiques. No, there was no rudeness in that video. Absolutely not. I watched it. Okay? There's no rudeness. I've seen rudeness. I've seen what rudeness looks like. That video is not rude at all. The title may sound rude to you, but if you watch the video, I explain that title is not me saying, you human, you suck, come watch this video for some clickbait. What I say is, I wrote this specific title, and I chose this title, and I fought myself for a while. I didn't want to choose your drawings suck, but what did it do? It got the most views on my channel. It's on any video that I have, because it attracted you guys, it offended you, and you came in and watched it, and I got you to watch it, and I got you to look at all the issues that you have in your work, why you're not improving. Alright? The reason why I said your drawings suck is because I'm talking to myself as a kid, and I always used to ask myself, why does my art suck? What am I doing wrong? And I had no answers for that. I had no resources growing up. When I do my draw my life, you guys will see, I grew up with absolutely no resources at all. So that video is not rude. It's not rude in the beginning, it's not rude in the middle, it's not rude at the end. I say suck, and I will continue to say suck, because that's how you guys talk to yourselves when no one is watching. You may pretend that you think your art is the best, but I know you. I know that you still think your drawings suck, because I used to still think my drawings suck. Everyone around me told me, wow, you're an amazing artist, you're great, you're great, you're great. But my drawings still sucked to me for some reason. I didn't know why. I never believed them. And I didn't start believing them until I started doing everything that I told you to do in that drawing suck video. I stopped depending on lines, I started using forms, I started using references, I started getting more confidence and building my confidence, and I brought myself into a community. And I got critiques, and I got people's perspective, and I got rid of my pride. That video is not rude. That's not me saying you guys suck, I can only get better if you subscribe and click on these ads. That's not what I'm saying. That would be rude. That video is not rude at all. Alright, a teacher suggested me to draw the outline of a face before the eyes, nose, and mouth when I sketch, but I feel I can't get the proportions right that way. What do you suggest? When you depend on eyes, when you draw eyes for so long, you have this you need to start with the eyes, because the eyes are the anchor of the anatomy. But when you invert that process, when you start with the head, suddenly you throw off your symbol dependency, and then you have, it's like getting used to a road. You usually start on this road for your race. You usually start in this place, and suddenly they change the location of where you're going to start the race. And you've always trained in that other road that you thought the race was going to be held in. You go to a new location directly. They don't even tell you. They didn't give you any notice. Hey, the race has been relocated. The marathon will now be held in this city. Just changing the environment has thrown you off completely. So keep at it. Keep drawing the face, the head shape, because your teacher is right. You're not supposed to draw the eye first. You're supposed to draw the volume. What came first, the eye or the head? The head came first, so draw the head first. It'll throw you off for a little while, but eventually you'll ease into it. And working backwards like that is really good for your line dependency. It'll help undo it. So, were you really a good athlete if you can't run now because they changed the location of the race? You should be able to run no matter where you go. The fact that they changed the environment and threw you off shouldn't change how well you perform. That's the test, and it's a really, really good thing for you to keep doing. Draw the face first. Draw the head first. Alright. I saw a video that was ridiculing people, like saying, "What the fuck were you thinking? Are you stupid?" Istebrak would never say things like that. She gives actual critiques. Thank you, I am. I've seen rude art videos. This is not rude. Yeah, thank you guys. What do you recommend to study form? Should one use references or just grab the lasso tool? Just grab the lasso tool. Go in ham. Go in raw. Go in dry. Go do what you gotta do. Don't even look for a reference. Just see what you can do as a diagnosis. When you realize, holy shit, it's been 10 hours and this form still doesn't look right, get a reference. In Portrait Studio, for those who have a copy of it, we have tons of references for you. Alright, you just gotta go to the models, move to the side, and just take a look at this cube and its different angles. Just take a look at what's happening to it. That's all you gotta see. Look at how 3 whole sides, 1, 2, 3 are dark. Alright, this means the world for your brain. Your brain is thirsty. Your brain needs this kind of rotation. Just doing this, just alone. Maybe this should be the loading screen for Portrait Studio. Oh my god, I got a great idea. Okay, just this rotation does worlds for your brain. Alright? And then the sphere, changing the way the secondary light source works, rotating this little baby here. Alright, this is getting weird. So this is rotating it z-axis wise. Let me just escape. Alright. I'm getting sick. I have a first person nausea, like when I play motion sick, like games like that, I get motion sickness. Just for you guys. Only for you guys. Alright, I'm enduring the pain. We've got other weird little shapes in here as well. So you can copy these shapes down, take a look at them and what happens to them in different angles, how many sides really are dark. Again, this quenches your brain's thirst for science, for form. Alright? There are still issues with the lighting in Portrait Studio, but they're not so significant that they're no longer realistic. Thank you for these lessons. They're really helpful. When I saw it, okay, I already read that. Alright, so any more questions before I go? So please remember, the community challenge is now up. To download your resource pack, go to istebrak.com and go to the community tab and download it here. It's going to be floral humanoids. To join the community, go to the Google Plus icon. Google changed their format on me, and I was really pissed. I'm very sorry about my outburst. But please follow the rules. Go to the About community and read this. Please read this. Make sure that you're reading this. And when you upload for the challenge, go to the filter and click on all posts. Make sure that you're not all posts. Click on the theme submissions. Yeah, there it is. Theme submissions, and that's where you're supposed to be submitting your work. Okay? So we're hitting 4,000 very, very soon. And if you guys are not reading the rules, we're going to have mayhem. We're going to have chaos. I don't even know what's happening. Just show me the community. Why am I not seeing any posts like beside each other? I hate this. I hate this format. This format makes me sick. Like it just gives me an ulcer. I have an ulcer now because of this new Google Plus. Anyway, before you could do this and just go to the classic, but now they forced us to use this one. I don't know. I'm going to try to contact them. I'll tell them that we have 3,000 members. I need this to be visible somewhere up here. Maybe they'll make an exception. Most likely not. But yeah, the challenge is up. It's due Tuesday the 21st of February. And in the next 2 weeks or so, on the 31st, the scholarship is due. And we will announce the winner. I have a couple already that I have decided to be the winner, and it's just a matter of filtering through them and seeing who really needs all these resources. And I'm going to assign them around mid-February or early February, the winners of the challenge, or winner of the challenge. And I think that's it. Any more questions? Anything? I'm new to drawing. Where do I start? Just start anywhere. You've fallen on an empty map, just like in Age of Empires. Remember that? They throw you into an empty map covered in the darkness of war, or whatever it's called, and you're just completely black, and you just have to choose somewhere and just start exploring. Explore everything. Unveil different dark spots of the map as you go. And yeah, what if the quote for the flower isn't bland or bad? I'm no poet in any skill in literature. Quote just means that with a prayer, all dreams come true. I'm just basically thinking of the Sylvari template. If you guys have played Guild Wars 2, you pass by the Sylvari place and there are all these like hippies, and they all talk about like flowers and shit. So maybe you can do something like that. Just something that specific flower, what kind of religion would it have? What does it believe in? What would it say? Just as a way to characterize it. I'm involving the quote because it helps you think about your character. It helps you think that your character is real. And when you're convinced, I'm convinced, because you draw a very good design. And you have fun, too. Istebrak, how to find the correct position of the eyes at any angle. Use horizontal and vertical lines. Always plan your image and start with the head, Faye James. Start with a circle of the head, a little piece for the jaw, find the vertical line, horizontal line, and out of that comes everything. So that's it for today. I'm so sorry about the technical difficulties. We disconnected like 7 times. Thank you everyone for joining. I will see you guys on Thursday at 5 p.m. Eastern Time. Bye-bye.